As I've mentioned on the show before, a couple of months ago, Sheree and I were experiencing this wave of negative energy. I don't know what it was, but it started out with norovirus, like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. Then Sheree had her emergency surgery. I got into my car accident, and we just had this string of bad luck and this string of negative energy. And it got to the point to where I started thinking that this isn't coincidental. There is some kind of force that's working against us. I mean, I understand stuff happens. Stuff happens to everybody. But the string of events and the timing of everything started to make me question. And I consulted Nancy and I consulted several people, and everybody seemed to agree, yes, there is something going on. Was it black magicians? Was it dark energies? Was it something wrong that I was doing? And it was the universe trying to get me back on path and saying, hey, look, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So refocus. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a bunch of obstacles that you're going to have to overcome so you can realign yourself. Who knows? But I know that a mutual friend introduced me to Katie, our next guest. And she did some spiritual cleansings for me, for us, for both of us, for Sheree and myself. And I've got to say that things started moving much smoother afterwards. Sheree's healed up really nice from the surgery.
Yep, I can attest to that.
I'm getting better with the car accident. I'm sure you can tell on the broadcast, despite the brain injury that I suffered. I'm speaking a lot clearer. I'm remembering my thoughts. So it's going to show things are healing. We've gotten over the mountain, and now we're getting back down to our normal baseline. I mean, even the network's coming along great. Everything's running 100%, almost. Still a little bit of crackling in the stream that we're still working through, but that's just small, buffer settings and things like that. But the bulk of everything is finished. And this all happened after Katie did whatever she did. And so I couldn't wait to get her on the show. She had some work that she was doing and didn't want to come on just yet, but now is the time, and I'm hoping that she can share a lot of her knowledge, wisdom, and light with everybody. Her website, as a matter of fact, is Reclaiming the Light. And I think this is a great balance because, like I mentioned earlier, we hear so many people right now at this cusp of 2012, this great awakening. They're changing their tune and they're saying, stay away from shamanism, stay away from the things that have opened minds in the past. That's all Tavistock government controlled propaganda, and embrace the darkness. That's a concept that I still am having a hard time grasping. I'm open to the idea, but maybe that's the downfall. Maybe I shouldn't be open to that. Maybe that's how I let all of those entities into my realm. By being open to that. Who knows? I just think that we should have an open mind no matter what. But I think we do need to reclaim the light. There's definitely an offset of balance going on, and we've got to fight it with the opposite. You can't fight fire with fire. That's what they say. You got to fight fire with fire. What happens when you try to fight fire with fire? You just make the fire even bigger. You've got to fight fire with water. Anyways, Katie has an impressive bio, and unfortunately, she wrote it in the first person. So if I try to regurgitate it, then it's not going to come out very well. So I'm going to let her explain for herself. Katie Gallanti, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you, definitely. And I just thank you on air right now for everything that you've done for us. You don't even know us from anybody else, but you took the time to help us to get rid of those energies. And I've got to say, whether it was something that you did or psychosomatic, I don't know. I'm real skeptical about everything, but it seemed to work.
Yeah. Well, it's hard not to be skeptical about things that we do not see, right? So if you don't see stuff, it's always a leap of faith. But the entities, I've been clearing entities for the past 13 years. And the entities are very real. And my beginning experience, I know you were going into my bio, and I'll go into that in a minute, but I just wanted to give people, there's a little flavor of why I ended up on this path, right, of doing what it is that I do. That is not just clearing the entities. I do other healing work that is not as dark, but my specialty seems to be dealing with the dark side, right? But from a light side point of view. And for me, it really wasn't an option. I came into this life in a family in which there were a lot of abuse issues. And our family, in some ways, was a magnet to those kind of energies. And I was psychic, obviously, since I was a child, even as if at the time I wasn't really aware that I was. And so by the time I was 8 years old, I was seeing the entities with my naked eye, actually, in my bedroom, right? And I remember explaining, to my mom, saying, "What's that shadow being over there? What's that other being over there?" And my mom told me that it was my imagination, obviously, and so I kind of went along with that and believed it. But I kept on seeing these beings, well into my teens, and then I kind of blanked them out. It's not that they went away, but it's like I put them into background noise, you know what I mean? And then when I was in my mid-20s, I underwent a very intense string of psychic attack where literally I was under attack by these beings every single night for a month. And during that time, I had to reach out to people just like you reached out to me. I had to reach out to some people to understand what it is that was going on, because I actually thought that I was going crazy. And during that time, I ended up learning more about, the spirit realm and the astral plane and so on. And I had my very first confrontation with these entities, and managed to overcome the psychic attack by literally commanding them out of my life. And for a little while that worked. And every year after that, I would encounter a bigger and larger and stronger version of these dark beings, until in the year 2000, I actually had a full frontal encounter with a being that called himself Lucifer. Right? So the head honcho of the pile, right? And interesting enough, that happened. It wasn't 2000; it was 2001, and it was literally 2 to 3 days before 9/11 that I had that experience. Right?
I've got to ask you something really quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but we've had this debate many, many, many times on the show. And what I noticed is that you called the being, you said that the being called himself Lucifer. Mm-hmm. He called himself Lucifer, not necessarily meaning that he was Lucifer. But in my research and experience, once you break out of the paradigms of religion, you start to wonder, is Lucifer really the Satan character, or was Lucifer maybe a benevolent being? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in some ways it's all speculation, because we don't really know, okay? My understanding is that, there are hierarchies. There are hierarchies on the dark side just as much as there are hierarchies on the light side. And the mapping out of these hierarchies is more complex, I think, than we think. We think that all entities are one thing and one and the same, and they're not. There's literally a whole pyramid structure, even within the entities themselves. And at a certain point last year, actually it was 2 years ago, I came across a group of 18 beings that were very, very close to the top of the pyramid, and they had their own energy signature. This year I did some other work while I was doing some planetary work, because I do a lot of this work, at the planetary level, just because I'm being told by my guides that I have to do it. And, every time I go in, and when I say I go in, is because I have to go into a deep psychic space to be able to access some of these realms. That each time when I go in, I see other beings that I haven't seen before. And so there really is a hierarchy and a structure on the other side. And in a lot of ways, whatever we think that we know about it is all guesswork, okay? It's like looking at a room through a little peephole.
Right.
So you see little pieces, and you see little pieces over here and little pieces over there, but actually we don't have the full picture because we just haven't seen all the pieces yet, okay?
I heard someone once say that Satan was like an office. Like an office, like the office of the presidency. And there's many different beings who play this role throughout the span of time.
Okay, let me ask my guides about that, okay?
Okay.
When I get no. I have not had a full frontal with the being or whoever it is that is Satan. So I can't answer that from personal experience. However, my guides label a whole bunch of beings as satanics, okay? So there's a whole bunch of beings in the hierarchy that are labeled satanics. But I have not encountered one individual being that is called Satan, not in my travels, okay? But there's a whole bunch of them that are called satanic beings. And satanic beings in my journey is basically what I call, I label things with, I have my own labels for things because I have to know what I'm looking at, okay? And I use terms like degrees of voltage or voltage of darkness, so that I can get the intensity of the darkness of the being that I'm looking at. And the satanics are pretty up there in the in the voltage of the on the pyramid thing. They're pretty up there. But as I say, I have not encountered quote unquote Satan. Maybe there isn't a Satan. Maybe all that there is a satanic energy and various beings that carry that energy. Well, instead, I have encountered the being Lucifer. And it actually came to me. I was on the way back from Mount Shasta. I was actually traveling with my boyfriend at the time. And we stopped in a motel because it was a long drive home, and just to sleep a little bit. And he went to sleep, and I went to sleep. And then I was woken up by an apparition, and this apparition was it looked like Jesus, all right? But it felt wrong. And so I said, you are not who you claim to be, right? And when I said that, the whole air in the room turned, and it looked like ice. It looked as if I was hallucinating, like when you're tripping. And all the air in the room was like a ripple of ice. And then the ice started cracking. And when the ice started cracking, the being cracked, and it the image of the being cracked, and it turned into this prince-looking, young-looking, prince-looking, jeweled, all full of jewels being. And he said to me, I am Lucifer, and I am the ruler of the cold, right?
Wow.
And so I said, okay, and I command you to leave. And then I had this major clash of wills with this being until I managed to command my own presence strong enough into the light that the being just shattered and disappeared. Obviously, I did not destroy Lucifer, right? I'm not that big-headed, but it shattered out of my own reality, right? And I thought the timing of that was actually really interesting because I do a lot of planetary work, but at the time I was still at the beginning of this particular journey. And, literally we get home from the motel, and when we got home, we woke up in the next morning, the whole 9/11 thing is happening, right? And at the end of that, I knew right when I was looking. It's okay to talk about 9/11 in a truthful way, right?
No, it's totally censored here.
Okay, good.
No, go right ahead, go there. Please.
That I knew right in the moment in which immediately as I was looking, it was as if I had already seen the whole thing in the future. It's a strange thing to explain, but it was as if I already knew the whole history of it, but not as a psychic thing. It's as if I had already seen it all and lived it all like 20 years in the future, and I had come back and I was seeing it and I was recognizing it. And so it was like, oh, okay, this is the event that they're going to tell us that is XYZ, and it's none of it. It's a big lie, right? And so I watched the whole thing, and then already by the afternoon, in a very synchronistic way, 3 other fairly high caliber healers showed up at my house, and we ended up doing a lot of work on that particular event to funnel out to some of the dark energies that were being grounded through the 9/11 ritual, because there was an aspect of the 9/11 thing that was a ritual and a sacrifice.
Well, you know what? You're giving me chills, because I totally agree with you. And
Yes.
people were pointing out to some of the smoke faces and saying, look, it's bin Laden, it's the devil. Actually, there is a sculpture by Rudolf Steiner, I believe, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the name. I think it's Achriman. Yes, and it's one of the Trinity of Satan, and it looks exactly like one of the faces in the smoke.
Is it Abraman?
Right.
Yeah.
Abraman, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and I saw that face later in time, when things started to emerge about it. But at the time, it just, I don't even know how to explain how I knew what I knew, because it was just, I knew it, and that was it. And we ended up doing some work on that and pulling out all sorts of energies. And I actually, that was because I was still at the beginning of my process with all of this, I kind of got stuck in this demonic pocket. And then eventually managed to pull myself out of it, because I do this kind of stuff astrally. So I go in on the astral plane, right? I can literally, like, my physical body is here, but my astral body goes out. And when I did that, I kind of got stuck. My piece of me got stuck in there, and it was not a lot of fun. And one of my healer friends had to help me to come back into my body. And then I actually vomited for 3 days straight, which once I actually managed to finally get back into my body. So it was a fairly intense week on the astral front, right? And so yeah. On a less dramatic front, I have been pretty much removing entities of various kinds from people, and on the day-to-day basis, entities are often not very high voltage. Like the normal average person will have some attachments, can have some entities in their field or dark energy in their field, but it's not going to be something super huge. Right, and so those kind of things are like you can remove entities of those kinds very, very quickly, and without a lot of difficulty. It is often when you go and touch into people or situations that have to do with the bigger picture, with the planetary picture, then you start to get some entities that have some bite. All right, and they can be kind of interesting. And so in your case, in your situation, I can't remember every single detail of what I did for you guys, because I work with so many people, and some of them pay me and some of them don't. Do you know what I mean? I just do what I'm told to do by my high guides, right? I'm a slave. I just do what I'm told.
Well,
so
for us,
if people need me, and I'm told to do it, I do it, right?
I remember what you told me that you did for us. There were several entities attached to the lower chakras, several
Yes.
entities attached to the studio area where we do
Yes.
our show. Things like that. There were also, you said there were tethers by black magicians.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And all of these things, just so that you don't feel all alone, anybody that starts doing work where they rock the boat in some way starts to begin to attract some of that stuff. It's not because you're not attracting these things because you're thinking dark thoughts. You're not attracting these things because you're not light enough. You're attracting these things because you are making a difference, and you're rocking the boat in areas that obviously the powers that be, seen and unseen, Because we focus a lot on, in the conspiracy area, we focus a lot on the powers that be that we can see, but actually the powers that be that we can see are not really the issue. The powers that be that are the real issue are all of the beings that are behind the scenes that are controlling all of these people, okay? And so the true seat of power in the quote-unquote war that we are fighting, right, is actually on the inner planes. It's not external. That is why all of these politicians and corporate masters, upper echelon people, do all of these rituals, and they don't just do it because they're sadistic perverts. They're doing it because that is where their power comes from, and also that is where their instructions come from. All right. So the actual where the strings are being pulled, they're being pulled from the inner planes, not from the outer planes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And so imagine that you are starting to make a difference, and you're starting to rattle a few cages, and you're starting to bring in some people that are important, sharing some information that is important and relevant, and then you're going to attract some attention, and you can attract attention on many levels. You can attract attention from various people that work in Virginia, or you can attract attention from literally beings on the inner planes that are paying attention to what you're doing, and then you get psychic attacks, and you have, if there are covens that are working around you that are plugged into the astral plane, that are in communication with some of these dark forces. These dark forces will literally instruct them about sending certain energies your way. All right. So very often, I've cleared people that are working. In fact, the past year seems to have been very much that I'm behind the scenes doing my thing, and then people that are doing work out there come to me, and I clear them out. Right. Because people get attacked regularly when they start to put their necks out in certain ways. Okay. So it's
right.
not just you guys. And in fact, it happened even to me at some point. This year, I have been very behind the scenes because I've been doing some writing. I'm writing a book, so I've kind of taken a bit of a back seat. But in 2010, 2009, 2010, beginning of 2011, I was doing a lot of radio work, and I was talking a lot about some of these topics, but also about mind control programs and all of those kind of things, right? And I started to have those things happen to me also. The battery in my car kept on going dead, right? So it was like I changed the battery 3 times and it would just not stay on. So basically couldn't use my car. And strange things were happening to my animals. And they were very, all of my computers, I had my main computer go down about 5 times, and literally when I went to the guy to have it fixed for the 5th time in 1 month, he said, "Do you have enemies?" He said, "This is not normal. Do you have enemies? Is there somebody here that is messing with you somehow?"
Well,
and
you know what?
Well,
a couple of years ago, I would have heard something like this and went, "Oh no, it's probably just all coincidental." But it's happened to us.
Yeah,
all of our computers died one day. One day, all at the same time. My work equipment all just went to crap too. A couple of days prior to that.
Remember that these are just electronics. It's actually really easy to mess with electronics.
Right.
It's really, really easy. I mean, even if you don't go the esoteric route and you stay within the earth plane, it's very easy to mess with electronics. Like, it's very easy to remotely interfere with those things.
Well, even esoterically, though, the television was created first to try to speak to the spirit world.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but yes, it makes sense.
I forget who it was who created it. I'll look it up during the break. But actually, Christopher Everard created a film called Spirit World, and he details a lot of this information in it. Right,
yes, yeah. So, it's basically the spirit world is, we live in the, depending on who you speak to, the 3rd or 4th dimension, right? We, planet Earth, when we go out shopping and have our coffee in the morning, normal stuff, right? That is third and fourth dimension. There's other dimensions of reality. There's dimensions of reality below us and above us. They all coexist in the same space. So it's not that you have to go anywhere to find another dimension. You have it right here. The only thing that changes is your perception. If we, the consciousness that we access normally through our physical body is tuned to the third, fourth dimension.
Right.
Now, if you take psychedelics, for example, that stuff will immediately open some doorways to the upper fourth, and sometimes even higher than that dimensions. All right, so you will start seeing things in a different way. You will start to see that reality is actually quite flexible. Right, it's not as solid as we think that it is. You can start to transcend some of those things. Now, if you go
Katie,
into meditation,
I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got the break hitting us. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Long segment on the other side. We'll get more into the higher dimensions, and I like where Katie is going with this because I totally agree. When you take psychedelics, you open something up within yourself, not the other way around. But it's not the psychedelic that's bad, it's the intent. It's not the magic that's bad, it's the intent. That's what I've always said. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting worldwide in complete defiance of the U.S. Patriot Act and the NDAA.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
Hello friends, I am the Anti-terrorist, and you're listening to Truth Frequency.
They want to externally manipulate the body computer so it doesn't pick up these truth vibrations, these higher levels of awareness that are coming in so fast now.
It's all visible, like mind control techniques employed in the mainstream media.
And by perpetuating that fear and maintaining that throughout every level of society, it becomes really difficult to actually break through to people, to actually get them to see that they can find this love and this higher consciousness within themselves.
And this often helps a lot because some of the most elusive mysteries you're not able to apprehend them directly. You can only apprehend them by negation as to finding out what they're not.
The veil is lifted and we can see things as they are. And ultimately, we have control over that.
Psychedelics seem to be the topic of the time right now, the zeitgeist, for lack of a better term. Some people are against them, some people are for them. I know that the shamans have been using them for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Now, I just want to make it clear, when we say psychedelics, we mean ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, the stuff that comes from the earth.
We're not talking about bath salts or any other of these synthetic hallucinogens. Even
LSD. Dennis McKenna, who we just had on the show, would argue that LSD has some positive properties to it. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I did, but I don't know. Not like a shamanic experience, especially with ayahuasca. I would even go so far as to say that psilocybin, while it's silly psilocybin, it doesn't really have the healing properties that ayahuasca has. That's probably the end all psychedelic. And of course, we just had the recent death of the kid that went down to South America. We spoke with Peter Gorman, writer for High Times, in the first hour of the broadcast about that. So, Katie, do you want to pick up where you left off? You were touching upon so many topics that I don't even want to try to rephrase it. Okay.
Well, I was basically saying, let's go back to the psychedelics for a second. That the psychedelics, what they do is that they open gateways, right? And different drugs open gateways to different things. But really, it is our consciousness that is traveling, right?
Right.
It's like it's not that the drugs are really doing anything to us. All that they're doing is that they're unlocking gates so that you can open up certain parts of your energy that usually are closed. And once those gateways are open, you can access different kinds of realities. And depending, as you said, also on the consciousness of the person that's piloting the experience, then you will also get a modulation on those realities still. Some substances are literally chakra openers. So the psychedelics that have a lot of the visual stuff and so on, they are working with the third eye and with the pineal, and they're helping all of that stuff to open up. Now, the dirty psychedelics, that's what I would call them, are the ones that will actually create damage within your aura when you're doing that kind of thing. So you can actually blow out your chakras and you can blow out your aura. And that kind of stuff, which, by the way, it also includes pharmaceutical drugs. And in fact, I would say that the majority of pharmaceutical mind drugs are dirty drugs.
Well, LSD can cause physical damage to you. I mean, ayahuasca can too, but you have to you have to really disrespect the spirit in order for it to hurt you.
Yeah.
But LSD can...
All of those things, I think everything can be misused and everything can be used right. It really depends on how you're piloting the experience. There's some people that have positive experiences with negative things. There's some people that have managed to have negative experiences with positive things. So it really does depend very much on the consciousness of the person and also of where what they're trying to achieve in terms of their soul journey. Because some people need negative experiences in order to learn things, and so they will encounter them, right?
Right.
Even if they use a positive like ayahuasca or whatever, if they need to have an experience that shows them something dark, they will have that. And so I don't think that there's a one rule fit all type thing. But generally speaking, there definitely are some dirty mind drugs, and those drugs will create problems with the energy field and with the chakras. And what happens is that then the energy field becomes, you could literally have an energy field that is ripped and it has holes and Swiss cheese type effect into it. And then that is a free-for-all for the entities to come in and, attach themselves and do all sorts of things, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, just real quick. I was on antidepressants for about 10 years.
Yes.
And it took several attempts to use ayahuasca before I even felt anything, saw anything, anything. It was almost like starting a car that hadn't been started in years.
Yes. And don't even get me started on the antidepressants. Can I go there for a second?
Absolutely.
Antidepressants, I think there's a conspiracy to get people on antidepressants.
There is.
I think that antidepressants are something that is designed to weaken the aura, to numb the spirit, weaken the aura so that human beings can be infested by dark energies and dark entities, so that they can be more easily manipulated into following whatever it is that the dark agenda for the planet Earth is.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that it's not by chance that every ad on the TV is about, hey, you are a little bit depressed, you need a little bit of Zoloft, right?
Yeah.
Those drugs are very bad for you. They may, but as I say, some people, they still need them for a very short period of time. They may still serve a function, but the solution to depression is not antidepressants. Antidepressants are they're just not the way in which we're supposed to tackle depression. Clinical depression, and I'm going to say something controversial here, that clinical depression really, in a lot of ways, doesn't exist.
I totally agree. I totally agree
normal.
with you. Bipolar is just being human. Sometimes we're sad, sometimes we're happy.
Yeah, and there are mental illnesses. I'm not discounting that they are mental illnesses, but the idea that a person is depressed because of something that's going on in their brain, and that 60-70% of the depressions out there are caused by that is a fallacy. It's not true. We are depressed because we live in a society that doesn't nurture the human spirit. And so when you live in a society where everything is ruled by money, but there isn't enough money to go around, and nobody really cares about who you are as a human being. All you have to do is be a cog in the machine, and the whole world is kind of crazy, and it's too chaotic, and there's bad food, and bad vibrations, and too much electricity, and you're polluted by entities, and so on. Yeah, you're going to be depressed.
Well, and then they tell you there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your brain or your genes or something you're doing that's making you depressed. And so you have to take these so that you can have a baseline. They call it a baseline of emotion where you're just like a robot.
Yes. And it is, I don't think that the people that are actually dishing out those medicines are aware of what they're doing. I think they really believe that because that's what they've been told and that's how they've been trained.
Well, and then
I actually am completing, at the moment, I'm completing a PhD in psychology, and I've done all of the clinical learning. I took my PhD class in psychopharmacology, and I know how these people are being trained. It doesn't go very deep. They basically tell you, in the training, they basically tell you, this is how the neurotransmitters work, and this is how you fix them. Right.
And
it's just like a religion. You believe it, right? Because the book says so. And then they prescribe various things. So it doesn't go very deep. But the what is happening in the past 20 years in the field of mind medicine, right, is that the whole revolution that had occurred kind of from Freud and Jung onwards, and that had really kind of taken off during the 60s and 70s with the human potential movement and, the very first humanistic counseling techniques and Gestalt and all of those things that were going on at that time. They were very profound in terms of personal healing from wounds from childhood, and et cetera, gradually have been replaced by this medical model of the brain equals machine, and if you're not doing very well, something needs to be fixed inside your brain. And what they are creating with that is a lot of people that are fixing themselves just like an alcoholic would with a drink. And people are no longer, not only they're not encouraged to go and look at the root causes of whatever is ailing them, but they are also ridiculed and steered in different directions if they want to do that. Like if you actually go to an HMO now and you ask and you say, look, I want to do some therapy and I want to do some deep therapy. I want to be in therapy for a year, or 2 or 3. That is what it takes to actually go and fix really deep root causes of abuse and child abuse and all of the things that cause the very deep depressions. You will find that the doctors will tell you that they don't want you to do that they will only give you 12 sessions and they will give you some behavioral counseling, and you can't even choose what it is that you want to do. And so people don't follow that route that much anymore, unless they go off the map like a lot of us people do, right? I was very lucky. I went through all of that kind of stuff because, as I say, I had an abuse background when I was a kid. So I came into my early 20s with a lot of baggage. And I always say that I was very lucky to crash very early because I could not progress without doing something. And I just happened to stumble very first off with, in Europe, they still at the time they were working with really deep therapy techniques and experimental even techniques of working with the mind. And I was very lucky to stumble on somebody that was working with bioenergetics and Gestalt and all of those kind of things. And within a very short period of time, I actually got back on my own track, right? So I know experientially what it means to get back on track from a very stuck place, and I know that it's got nothing to do with swallowing pills, right? But I think going back to the conspiracy angle of this, I really believe that one of the reasons for which these things are given out like candy now is because they truly damage the aura and they make people vessels for these forces that are dying to get into our plane with more, they want to be here. They want to be here and they want to be, they're parasitic and they want to attach themselves to as many people as they possibly can. And if we go into the larger picture, because why is it that they're doing it, and why is it that they're doing it now, right?
Well,
now, have you been following, for example, the whole Olympics issue?
We looked into it briefly, but we saw that it was basically a ritual where they were summoning whatever spirits were coming out. But that's as far as I looked into it.
Okay, well, I looked into it quite a bit because that's part of my quote-unquote job,
right?
To go and fix things like that, right? So when I see that there's a big ritual of some kind, I need to go see what it is that they're trying to do. And that was actually what I was busy doing when you asked me to be on the show before. I was busy fixing that kind of stuff. And so they were doing a massive ritual to bring in massive entities. And in fact, some of the entities that have come in since that ritual have they're so much bigger than anything that I have seen up until this point onto the Earth plane.
They've been quite nasty, haven't they?
Sorry?
Quite nastier than usual, haven't they?
Nasty, yes. Nastier than usual, bigger than usual, even bigger in size. You know, it's not that there's a size on the astral plane, but kind of. And when I look at them in my third eye, it's like, whoa, this being is huge.
Yeah,
I've never seen this kind of being before.
Well, there had to have been some kind of portal that opened so that it was able to come in. You can't just, those things don't just come over here. There has to be a ritual.
And I can tell you, I can literally tell you because I've seen it. That's exactly what they were doing. They were opening up a portal. And by the way, they did the exact same thing in Atlantis. This is not the first time that the planet Earth goes through this particular thing. Okay? I am not at liberty to disclose every single detail of what I see, because if I do, who knows who's listening?
Right.
And
right.
I can disclose information that is not a good idea to disclose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm scared of disclosing it, but because it can damage the work. And so there's some pieces I cannot talk about, right? But I'm just going to say what I'm allowed to say. That is that those portals are very real. They're opening them continuously with all of these rituals that they're doing right now that are not just the Olympics ritual, but also the things that they do like at the Grammys, at the Emmys, the music, the whole music awards type thing, whenever they do those kind of weird music video type ceremony type things.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Lady Gaga makes me sick on such a high degree.
Yes.
It's unreal.
Yeah. And those things, there's smaller rituals, bigger ones, and so on. The Olympics is probably the biggest thing that I have seen so far of that kind. I'm also going to tell people to not get too afraid, because there are people like myself that go in and counteract a lot of that stuff. So just because you know that certain things are occurring, it doesn't mean that there isn't a balance. There is light that balances some of that stuff out. There are forces of light that work. And, when we say forces of light, people kind of yawn and roll their eyes, right? Because they think it's like New Age foo-foo stuff. But it isn't. I'm going to go back to the multidimensionality. We live in a multidimensional world. There are many dimensions of reality. Each dimension of reality is characterized by a frequency. Each frequency has a higher and higher voltage. Each dimension, as you go up, it has a higher and higher voltage, okay? So we are in dimension 3 and 4, and we are being interfered with and polluted by dimensions 4, 5, 6, and sometimes 7, but definitely up to 6 of negative polarity. That is where all the entities are coming from. The ones that most people see when they astral travel, those are 4D dark. The ones that are coming in from some of these rituals are like 5D, 6D dark, okay, like the really intense voltage from the higher dimensional dark polarity planes. Well, instead, if you go on the positive polarity of that dimensionally, when you go on, you go to dimensions 5, 6, 7, and etc. on the positive side of the polarity, you will get a lot of what we call the positive galactics, right? Like beings that actually have bodies, but they are galactic beings. And I'm just going to put a parenthesis there that there's also fake positive galactic beings, so we have to use discernment because there's a lot of beings out there that pose as being good, but they're actually not. So you have to be very careful when you talk about galactics because it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? But once you go further than that and you go to dimensions 10, 11, 12, then you get the real deal as far as the light beings that are the beings that are aligned with the service to others path and that are aligned with the with the light mind and heart of creator, primary creator for the whole reality, right? And those beings and some of the positive galactics are very much involved at the moment in helping us and supporting us in counteracting these dark forces that have been polluting this plane now for at least 200,000 years, right? They have been interfering with the Earth plane for at least 200,000 years. And so...
are you talking about the archons?
That's a word that people use to describe some of these beings. It's not a word that I use, but I know what you're talking about. And so let's say kind of yes, okay? Mm-hmm. That I think that word is limiting. I think that we have, there's a, as I say, there's a whole pyramid structure of beings on various dimensions that we are dealing with, and that have been interacting with the planet Earth and the consciousness of the planet Earth for a very long time. And one of the things that is happening at the moment, okay, there's two things happening at the moment. First of all, we are reaching the crux of the shift. So the shift that is going on the planet right now, consciousness shift, is driven by the sun, it's driven by the center of the galaxy. So as the sun increases in frequency, because it's starting to make a change of phase, it's starting to get ready to make a leap, the sun. That's why we're having all of the solar flares and all of those kind of things. The sun is getting excited and it's just about it's transitioning, okay, into another frequency band. And it's doing that because it's being triggered and stimulated by the
center of the galaxy,
by the galactic core.
Right.
And the galactic core is basically pulsing frequencies to the whole galaxy, and it's exciting our sun.
Right.
In
That's
the same
already.
way.
I just want to say you're totally correct. Science has already proven you right on that one. So
yes.
yeah.
So it's pulsing, sun jumping, and as that's happening, the Earth is also doing that because we're part of the Earth, we're part of the solar system. So as the sun does this, the Earth is getting excited also, and I'm using the word excited the way that a physicist would, not in normal language. In physics, when we talk about excitation, we're talking about energy packages being delivered so that atoms jump from one level to another, right?
Right.
And it's the same here. It's almost like the planets are jumping levels, and so there's a lot of going on energetically right now. And one of the things that the dark beings are doing is that they are trying to ride the shift. The reason for which all of this interference is occurring, it's not because they want to create the New World Order or the One World Order or whatever, although that is one of the ways in which they are aiming to take control.
Right. I was just about to say that's the 5 sense reality level of it.
It is. That's how. That's the how. That's how they're going to control everything, right? So to control everything, they need to control everything. So they have to have their one world structure and all of their tentacles in every pie. But that's not the final agenda. The final agenda is to ride the shift. They want to ride the shift so that when this shift occurs, the collective mass consciousness vibrates dark so that they can steer the collective consciousness of humanity towards a dark, towards the next level, but in the dark polarity. Mm-hmm. While instead, the light is doing the same thing, trying to steer the collective consciousness towards a shift that goes into light polarity. So that is ultimately what is going on, and that is why there's what we call the externalization of dark ritual going on right now. Because they've always been doing dark ritual. So why are they doing it in public now? Why is it that, they are kind of exposing themselves by doing that? These rituals have been going on since Egypt. Why do they need to externalize them all of a sudden? And they need to externalize them because they need mass participation in their ritual.
Ah, okay.
Because they need more voltage to do what it is that they're trying to do. And so even the externalization of ritual in the music industry that has been happening very much so in the past 5 years is part of that. It's like they want to recruit people into their ritual. They want the younger generations to give them their energy so that they can make that leap and that jump.
Oh, well, I know it was traumatizing to me watching what happened on 9/11. That was traumatizing
absolutely.
to me, just to watch all those people die live on TV, and then to think thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people around the world saw the exact same thing. It's like, whoa.
Well, I've got to ask you, Katie. Some people say that the dark energies are trying to stop the consciousness shift and stop the shifting, but you're saying rather they're wanting to take it over and control it and ride the wave in.
Yes. Well, both these things are true. They're trying to stop the light aspect of the shift, but they're trying to. Can you see how they're amplifying everything right now?
Right.
So they're amplifying dark, right?
They are.
So
and it's funny you mentioned that.
Like the zombie attacks,
but
all
they're
this.
amplifying the dark.
Well, Katie, we've had so many people recently coming out and saying we've got to embrace the darkness, embrace the darkness. It doesn't feel right to me.
No.
What you have to... Okay, could I clarify on what I think they may be trying to say with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. You have to look at the dark. You cannot ignore it. You can't ignore it. It's like... there has been a massive mind control program through the New Age movement, as far as I'm concerned, to make people not look at the dark at all.
Right.
And to basically say, think happy, think good thoughts, clap your hands.
Pollyanna
smile.
syndrome, yes.
Don't talk about anything negative. Don't talk about, whatever you put your attention on, it grows, blah, blah, blah. There's some truth to some of these things, but I personally believe that a lot of these things are a mass mind control program that has been put in place to create the next religion, collective one world religion that is going to make everybody not look at this dark piece. And, it's almost like the cardinal sin is to look at the dark now, right? And if you deny what is going on, you become a lamb to the slaughter, because this stuff is going on. If you look at it or not, the dark is doing what it's doing. It's not that we're creating it with our thoughts. The dark has been here since it infiltrated all the way at the end of Atlantis, and that is why Atlantis fell down. And by the way, even at the time, there were people that were saying, don't look at the dark. It's this. They've used this kind of trickery before.
Katie, hold that thought. We're about to hit the break, but wow, absolutely amazing. I'm getting chills listening to this because so much of it is resonating with me. We'll be right back. Ponder everything that Katie said until we get back. I completely agree with Katie Gallanti. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Gallanti, of reclaimingthelight.com. And I agree, we have to face the darkness. There was a point in time, and many of our regular listeners know this, that I just couldn't delve into the dark parts of what's going on at that point. I was way too empathetic. I was feeling it. I was experiencing within myself what the victims were experiencing. And it was hard for me to look into some of the darkest parts of reality, of mankind, of what things are, what people are capable of. Things. I'm just going to leave it at things, not even people, because I don't even think these people are people. they're things, they're creatures, they're possessed by these darker energies. But then that brings the question, what was here first, the light or the darkness? And what is the purer form? Is it the darkness because it exists no matter what? Or is it the light because it makes the darkness go away? And now that I'm listening to Katie speak, I'm realizing that the balance is really what we need. And Katie, I know you agree to be on just until the half-hour mark. If you need to take off, just let me know. But if we can keep you for the next half hour until the top of the hour, that would be fantastic, because this is a great conversation.
Yeah, no, I can keep rolling with you.
Okay, excellent.
Wonderful,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So, if the darkness or the light existing first is a question that you can answer in different ways depending on where you're looking at it from, right? Because this reality that we are in is a polarity reality. And by polarity, it means that it has the positive and the negative in it both, and it has the light and the dark in it both.
That's true. Night and day, man and woman, it's all...
That's right.
Yes.
It's a polarity reality, and there is a purpose to a polarity-based reality, and there are places that are not polarity-based. There are places where this kind of conflict between light and dark does not exist. Obviously not on this planet, right? But there are other places in the multidimensional spectrum where we do not have these kind of experiences.
But if you stare into the light, then you become blind. If you stare into too much light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's try to change that a little bit and to actually understand the purpose of the polarity planes, right? Because there's a purpose to it. And the purpose to it is evolution through contrast. We are ultimately souls on a journey, right? So we incarnate, we originate from source, and we are birthed into our soul essence, and then we go on to an incarnational journey. And through that incarnational journey, we encounter various experiences. Through those experiences, we accumulate energy. At the beginning, usually we accumulate blockages, and then as we go forward, we evolve beyond those blockages, and we get higher in consciousness and higher in love. The purpose of the incarnational journey is to evolve. The purpose of the incarnational journey is to evolve, not in how much money you have or in how much you can master the material world. There's a lot of teachings out there at the moment in the spiritual arena that tell you that evolution is about mastering manifestation principles, being able to create what you want, It's not that. The evolution is about advancing in consciousness, which means understanding and wisdom. When you are looking at something, that you understand the full picture of why it's occurring, the deeper meanings of things, and so on. So that is an aspect of consciousness. And it's also about deepening one's ability to love. And love is, we talk about light, but actually we should be talking about love, because light and dark are the two flip sides of the polarity. So you have the dark polarity and the light polarity, and so on. But the way out of this duality is love. Love and consciousness are the two pathways through which we evolve. However, how are you going to do that if you do not encounter an obstacle? So a lot of the reason for which a soul will incarnate into a polarity plane and will experience a polarity plane in which there are light and dark aspects, in which there are clashes between different sides of the polarity, is so that they can evolve past that and choose to be of service to others, and choose not to be manipulated by the dark side into being service to self, and so that they can deepen their wisdom, their consciousness, their understanding, and their ability to love. Now, this ability to love can be translated on a very personal level in terms of being compassionate, understanding towards other people, and so on. But it can also go at an even bigger kind of planetary level in caring about what happens to humanity, caring about what happens to the planet Earth, caring about the fact that the animals are also happy on the planet, and so on. And so it's a pro life and pro-love orientation, right? Well, instead the dark polarity is pulling in the other direction. However, if we did not have the contrast, there would be no choices to be made. It would all just be one thing. And so the light and the dark allow for a soul to be placed in front of choices between orientations. And then through the quality of those choices, that soul has an opportunity to evolve. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I've often said the Christian idea of the Garden of Eden was most likely a spiritual trap, because if we didn't have the strife and suffering that came with being dismissed from the garden, we wouldn't seek anything higher.
Yes, that is true. And in fact, have you ever heard of the Hidden Hand material?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay. Have you read it?
I haven't read it.
Okay. Now, that is really valuable. Shall I just go over it very quickly for your audience?
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that is a document, and you can find it on Illuminati. I think it's IlluminatiNews.com. That is a website that's run by this guy that used to be in the music industry called Wes Pern, I think is his name. Anyway, he put together this whole website. There's a lot of stuff on there. And one of the good services that he has done is that he has, gathered various documents that have appeared on the internet at various times and kind of archived them. So this is it's not his document, but it's a document that he has on his website stored. So I think it's IlluminatiNews.com if you want to actually have a look at it, and then look for the Hidden Hand material. And basically, apparently, at some point, I think not too long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, this guy that called himself Hidden Hand appeared on one of the conspiracy message boards, and I think it was above Top Secret, and basically said that he was available for questioning, and that he was a representative of the most hidden aspect of the elite, and that it was part of his Luciferian duty to come out and spill some beans and answer some questions about whatever anybody wanted to ask him. And you know that the Luciferian people, they have this kind of rule that every now and then they have to tell you what they're doing, okay? And the reason for which they have to do that is because if they tell you what they're doing and you do not do anything about it, then they consider that is your free will, and so they're exonerated for any karmic impact.
You know, I've never read the material, but my intuition has always told me that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that is why the guy, so basically it was like, hey, it's my time, I'm supposed to come out here, they told me to just sit here and answer your questions, right? So follow a whole week of this guy answering all these questions, and the guy on the IlluminatiNews.com collated them into a document so everybody can read them all in one place. And basically, what he was saying, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting information in there. It's really useful. I actually believe that this person is really who he says he is. I'm not saying that there's not a little bit of spin in there, but I really believe that my intuition said this dude is for real, right? And one of the things that it said was that he was part of a group consciousness of Lucifer, and he actually labels Lucifer as a collective being rather than an individual being, right? Although it can have obviously an individualized manifestation. And it was saying that there was a time in which the earth plane was actually didn't have this aspect of darkness. It didn't have it. And I agree with that, because I remember my past lives, and I remember a time in which this aspect of darkness was not present on the earth plane. And basically that it was brought in on purpose because the evolution on this planet was going really slow and people were not evolving. And so, you know, the realm was kind of like not really doing what it was supposed to do. And so a group, this is a very different way of looking at the dark, okay? It basically said that a group or a group consciousness from actually quite high dimensions decided to drop down and to become the catalyst and to become the obstacle and to become the challenger, right? So that souls that incarnated here could have the opportunity to clash against something and to learn through the vehicle of contrast. And you will find that this particular theme is also repeated in the Ra material. Have you ever heard of that body of work?
Yes.
And if you read that body of work came to me in the year 2000. For some reason, a client of mine actually dropped it at my house, and then I ended up reading the whole thing. And basically, if you read through all of that, it's telling you exactly the same thing, but from the point of view of the light, because the raw consciousness that is coming through in those books, and if people want to read them, you can go to Amazon, and it's like the raw material. That's what it's called, and it's 5 volumes, and of writing of channel. It's like the recordings and transcripts of channeling sessions that happened between these 3 people between 1918 and 1984. And what the lead person that was running this little channeling experiment was called Don Elkins, who was a paranormal and UFO researcher at the time. And what he did was that he, was actually trying to contact extraterrestrials. He was not really trying to do anything esoteric. He was just trying to connect with an extraterrestrial consciousness, and instead he ends up connecting with this higher dimensional collective social memory complex consciousness that labeled itself as Ra, that is very high in the light in terms of vibration. And basically this consciousness gradually over these 4 years gave them a cosmology and an understanding of the evolutionary pathways for the earth plane and the role of the light of the dark, and et cetera, et cetera. And in fact, that is probably one of the most comprehensive books in terms of explaining how the light-dark thing actually works on the planet Earth and why it's here from a spiritual perspective, right? And so very interesting to see that Spill the Beans, Hidden Hand, Mr. Darkness extraordinaire, and the raw material consciousness, where if you read it, you could really feel the vibration is very, very high, pretty much coming up with the same map of why the darkness came onto the earth plane and what its function is. However, having said that, I feel, and have been feeling for a while, that it's almost like the darkness kind of took on, how things can get a little out of hand sometimes?
Yes.
It's like they came here to provide that service, but it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yep.
And it's gotten, the dark experiment has gotten a little out of hand. And so this is why there are so many beings right now incarnated onto the earth plane who have extremely high consciousness, right? And their purpose for being here at this time, they may not be people that have incarnated on the earth plane that many times before, but the reasons which they're here is to provide the balance, to balance out the darkness with light, so that the choices become equal again, and so that humanity can choose through free will rather than being manipulated into choosing darkness, because that is where we're at right now on the earth plane. Now we are in a situation where people do not even know what they're choosing anymore, because the darkness has taken over and manipulated the society to such a degree that really there's only one option to choose, that is the dark side, because they've manipulated everybody, right? So this is why, and I'm going to go back to the beginning here and say that, when you were saying about don't look at the darkness, well, this is why we have to look at the darkness, because we have to break the spell of the manipulation. We have to break the spell of the mind control. We have to be able to look at what is really happening on this planet. And then, after that, we have to fix it. One of the things that people are getting slightly stuck on now is that they're looking at it, they're analyzing it, they are seeing it, but they're not fixing it. Mm-hmm. And so that you have to be a little bit careful about. Once you've started looking at the darkness, don't get stuck in just looking at the darkness. Fix it, right? Like, you have to then provide alternatives, think about alternatives, raise consciousness, eat raw food, think about new systems of education, Think about new ways of doing collective work. Think about ways in which to restructure society. Think about ways in which to take humanity forward. You cannot just sit there all day reading about rituals. You have to start thinking about the next stage, because that is going to be what ultimately seeds the consciousness of the next wave. If we stay only stuck in analyzing what is going on, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, I think you should do it, but if that's all that you're doing, then you're feeding the dark. Mm-hmm. So it's a fine balance, isn't it? It's like you need to bust the paradigm, you need to bust the mind control, you need to be able to see what's really going on and get out of the denial and out of the manipulation system of the Dark Lords. But at the same time, you cannot just do that, because otherwise you're empowering them. You need to start looking at the next chapter, the next phase, and looking at the empowerment of the human spirit so that you can start seeding the new models and templates to be.
That's right. They want you to be depressed. They want you to be disillusioned and constantly either in fear or in flat-out terror or just apathetic or indifferent at this point. That's perfectly fine with them, as long as you're not messing with the system at all, as long as you're not making a lot of noise, they're fine.
Yeah, but even within the noisemakers, even within the conspiracy, info warrior, light warrior field itself, there is a danger, and this danger has been, to me, has been apparent in the past year or two. It wasn't so apparent before, because everything in life is always shifting, and everything requires different things at different times. Like, there was a time in which being the info warrior or the light warrior or the one that talks about the things of the dark was absolutely necessary. But now we've come to a point where most people that are us, that are in this, arena, we get it. We know what's going on. We've busted the thing wide open. There's not that many rocks left to turn. Mm-hmm. And so now, if we continue to only look at, the next conspiracy, and that is all that we're doing, we can almost get stuck into a position where we are empowering we're kind of empowering it, because we're saying, oh, everything is really bad, or everything is really dark, or everything is they're going to put us into the FEMA camps, blah, 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 right, and so on. And it's not that it's not true that those things are on the agenda. They are. But we have to start thinking about solutions, because otherwise we're just empowering these dark plans and these dark visions with our own fear. And we don't want to do that. We need to move. We need to see it, but we need to then move and start planting the new seeds.
Right. I mean, you have to wonder at some point, does it become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like we're all so worried and so afraid of say the economy crashing. Like, let's say we're so concerned about the dollar crashing, and then, oh my God, it happens. And
there is an aspect of that, because you become part of the manifestation ritual that they're pulling out, right? Like, you can literally become part of their own ritual if you empower too much the things that they are telling you that are coming. So there's definitely an aspect to that, and one has to be a little bit careful. But the most important thing, rather than not looking at the dark, is to empower the human spirit. It's not that you're not supposed to look at certain things. Look at them, talk about them, unlock the reality that you're looking at. It's all good. You can do that. But at the same time, you have to empower the human spirit. You have to come from a position where you are saying human beings are powerful, 12th dimensional, multidimensional beings. And if you blow those chakras open, if you clear out those circuits, if you clear and upgrade, the energy systems that have been shut down because that's how they wanted us and that's why they make us eat the horrible food, and all of those kind of things. And if you stay centered in love, if you make a true commitment to being love in your life and towards creating a beautiful future for humanity and connecting with Source and connecting with Spirit, all of those things create a human being that is powerful and that is knowledgeable of its own power. And from that point of view, you can become a potent creator of reality, not just as The Secret says, but because you and your fellow man join together to create new things, okay? And you can do this energetically if you're metaphysically inclined, but even if you're not metaphysically inclined, you can gather with your fellow man, and you can gather from a point of view of potency, not from a point of view of fear. And from that point of view of potency, you can look at the planet Earth and you can start to think about what it is that you want to create next on this planet.
Very well said, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely amazing. I wish we would have had you on sooner, but I think timing is always perfect, and I've got to thank our mutual friend for introducing me to you.
Yes.
He wants to remain nameless. Maybe he's listening right now. I've invited him on the show. He says, I don't want to go on the show. There's dark energies. They're going to get me. And I tell him, you know what? We have to follow our Dharma, and we have to get up in their face. That's the only way. The way I see it, whatever happens to me, it's inconsequential, because ultimately the goal is to better everybody around me.
Yeah, and also, and here maybe we can talk a tiny bit about this in the last few minutes. We have powerful protection available to us, all right? The dark spirits are just one aspect. They're one coloring of the multidimensional template. We have dark beings, and they can attack you, and we have dark humans, and they can attack you, and we have dark technology that is used routinely to attack people who are doing good things, and so on. And that's one side of the spectrum, and a lot of us in our field are very familiar with this because that's what we study, that's what we have focused on in terms of our process of uncovering of what's going on this plane. But there is also a counteractive part that is light and that is love-orientated, positive beings on many dimensions that have equal power, if not bigger power, than these beings that are opposing us in many ways. And so once you truly get that, once that is truly grounded and you truly see that and you get that in your own being, so that it's not just a little fantasy, but you know it because you experientially have experienced communicating and communing with beings from much higher consciousness, right? Once you truly get that, you know that you're protected. And the only times in which you're not protected are because there's something for you to learn. But otherwise, you are always protected, and so you can do this kind of work, and you can do it in the trust and in the faith of knowing that you will always have higher consciousness that is available to you to protect you and help you at all times. We are not here all by ourselves, we're not the little tiny, was it David and the big monster Goliath?
Right.
It's not like that. It's like, yes, if we just stay in our 3D Earth consciousness and we're not aware of anything around us, yes, then we are the little David, and the big Goliath is just about to smash you on the head with a big club, right? And that is the New World Order and the dark entities and the, mind control programs and all of those beings, and, and they can be the reptilians and so on, it can be really overpowering, right? But you have to imagine in this picture that there's a big giant Goliath and there's a little guy, David, that then attached to David, if he looks up, David can see that there's this line of light that goes high, high, high above, and all of these massive beings of light are right there. They're just waiting to be asked to intervene and to protect him. And the minute in which David plugs into his own multidimensional aspects, because most of us also have higher aspects on the high planes that are ourselves. They're not even a being outside of ourselves. They're just a higher manifestation of who we are. So if we start to pull in the highest manifestations of who we are, and if we start to also pull in, and ask for intervention and help and protection from some of these energies from the very high dimensions, we're protected. And
we are protected. I totally agree. Katie, we're running out of time, unfortunately. How can people support your work?
They can go to my website. My website is not very good, so just have patience with it. It's what it is, and they can email me, katie@cosmicessence.com. In terms of things that bring me money, I do healing sessions and so on. So if people need healing of various kinds, they can have a look at my various websites, and also you will find my blog. I have 2 or 3 blogs out there. They're all on the website. If you go around the website, you'll find them.
ReclaimingTheLight.com. Ladies and gentlemen, kiss the one you love right now, because you never know when the last time is going to be, and I can tell you firsthand, the healings from Katie works. We'll see you next weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay tuned. Donnie Gilson is back with 32 Degrees of Insanity right here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network.